Well, friends, one of the most frequently asked questions that I get regularly is about investment in Africa, investing in Kenya. So, folks often ask me, what can they put money in that can generate for them passive income or some kind of income when they return? Because a lot of people who are planning on returning want to at least have some kind of additional way to make money while living in Africa. Well, if you're thinking about putting money on anything transport, whether it's Matatu, doing Uber, Apico, construction trucks and things like that, tractors and boats, I'll say don't. Don't. If you're looking for premium tiers, then put your money in things like that. Again, as I've always said in many of my videos, my experiences are very limited. I'm only talking about the few people I know. Every single person I know from diaspora who has put money on transport business, whether they bought Matatus run usually by relatives or they put money in Uber and things like that, have failed. While it is true that many folks have failed from diaspora, I see a lot of success stories in the transport business. And many of them, in my experience, have been folks who live in Kenya, have been doing this thing and are part of the system. But if you're from diaspora and you want to do this, the limited data I have shows that it is an absolute nightmare. Don't put your money in it. So let me walk you through that in the next 10 minutes. But as always, folks, welcome to Kisumu Karateng. It's an incredible morning, as you can tell. Greenery everywhere. The schools are already closed in Kenya, for those of you who are in Kenya. And you'll see kids running around. And for some reason, lately I've noticed in the last couple of years, kids close for like 2 months around December, which is fantastic if you're a kid. But it's very unusual because growing up, I don't remember spending that much time around Christmas. But anyway, we are looking forward to the most exciting time of the year for me, which is December. And in the meantime, I'm just taking a leisurely stroll with my supervisors. We're going to go out, walk along Returnee Boulevard. This is right outside our gate. My neighbor's gate is on the right, and our gate is right in front of me up there. And I'm going to walk all the way to my grandma's home. We'll spend some time and just have a chill day with the kids. So anyway, folks, if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe. Your support really makes us go way further. And we're looking forward to getting to 100K subscribers by the end of the day. So check if you have not added your name to it and subscribe. And you also know that I help returnees with construction. I've got contractors, we've got landscapers, interior designers. If you need help, my number is right below. Reach out. So anyway, as I've said earlier in the video, if you're thinking of putting money on anything in transportation, whether you're doing a Matatu, you're doing Uber, you're doing motorcycles, lorries, tractors for plowing, or boats, as a person who has been gone from Africa for a while, this is the last thing I would ever recommend that you do. There are many things that could help you make money. And I've shared a few in my channel, and some of it I share privately, but transportation is not one of those things I'm going to recommend. I hear lots of stories from returnees. For example, there are people within my circles who bought Matatus. And if you're new to Kenya, Matatu is some kind of like a local minivan type of situation. And it's a Kenyan thing. In other countries, they call it different. But in Kenya, they just call it Matatu. But basically, you're buying maybe a 14-seater or a 21-seater, and then you use it for public transportation. So the cases I hear is that a person buys a Matatu and then puts it on the road, hires a driver, hires whoever you're hiring, and many of them tend to be relatives. Maybe your brother is the driver, and then you have maybe your sister-in-law managing it, and then there are people in your network who are going to run it. The first couple of months, things start just fine, where they start bringing money and it seems okay, and then it never hits a year before disaster strike. I see the same thing with you, and personally, I have done Uber. In fact, the car that we used to use for Uber, we just took it out and now we're using it for something else. Initially, like for Uber, you get it and then you assign a person, and typically most people give the drivers a target. For example, you'd say, okay, Every week, you're going to have to give me about maybe 5,000 or whatever that amount. And then the drivers will obviously say yes, because these are often young men. Many of them are educated young men who don't have ways to make money, and they will say yes to whatever target. So the first couple of weeks, it's as they're bringing money. Same thing with Matatus. The first couple of weeks, they're bringing in money. It looks exciting and all that, and it almost never hits about a week. Same thing with motorbikes. They begin and it looks okay with the targets and all that. They bring money, and then at some point, things begin to change. For one, this is one of the hardest businesses to really manage in terms of revenue management. Because you don't know what they're making, and it's very hard to keep track. Like my Uber guy sometimes would call me and say that he's broken down, he's not moving. Yet because I had a tracker in the Uber, I could actually see him moving from point A to point B. Yet he's reporting that he's not making money. And so you go for weeks upon weeks, he's not delivering any money, and you see him moving. In fact, there's one time I even saw him, he was supposed to be driving in Nairobi. But then I see him driving somewhere around Kisii, which is like, miles and miles away from where he's supposed to be driving. So, and then if he doesn't bring the money he's supposed to, there's always an excuse. And then from there on, they start with the breakdowns, where it's the tires, it's whatnot. So you're busy actually spending money on this thing, and it is not paying anything back in return. A very common story. So then this thing turns into a huge money pit where you're constantly paying money to just fix it. And then you move into now the corruption system that is everywhere. I mean, corruption is not just an African thing. Even America right now, like the US is probably one of the most corrupt countries I've seen. They just make it legal for the most part. And so when you're dealing with the police officers, you're dealing with local authorities, parking and all that, there are systems within Kenya, especially cartels, that run transportation business in the name of SACCOs. And then you have people who manage the collectors, those who collect fares. There's a lot of cartels in between. And if you make the mistake of coming from outside that network, they are going to milk you dry. Because there's almost no money you can ever give them that will satisfy them. They're always going to take until they collapse the whole thing. It's never enough. In fact, when it comes to Matatus, the only people that I see doing really well often tend to be drivers or touts who have bought their own Matatus and are running it, or people who have been in that system. This is one of the businesses that is almost impossible to break into as a complete novice. So whatever money you're thinking about, just don't put it in anything to do with vehicles for money. It's a whole different story. And then come back to car hire. Similar story. You lease it out and then you rent vehicles, and people have this really bad habit of really messing up things that they don't pay for. So somebody just rent your car, and some of them people who rent car actually have their own cars. They rent your own car, they leave their own cars, and then they drive your car, mess it up, and bring it up. So then it turns out the cost of maintaining these vehicles becomes so high. And by the way, just so you know, maintaining vehicles in Africa, especially Kenya, is 1,000 times more than it is in diaspora. I'm looking at how much I spend just to keep my car on the road. And often it has everything to do with the wheels. Whether you're talking about springs, shocks, there's just things around the wheels. That is what you're always changing. The engine will be fine, the transmission will be okay, but our roads are very brutal on our cars. So the cost of maintaining these vehicles goes really high. And then sometimes they actually coordinate. Like your Matatu driver would just call you and say, hey, we're in trouble, we're at the police station, when they're really not. Or sometimes they organize, a police officer calls you that they've already picked up your car. So then you are required to pay extortionate amount just to get your car out, only to realize that it's your guys that coordinated with police officers or fake police officers to extort money from you. And even on days that something genuinely happens, something like an accident, or you would find that drivers end up maybe causing an accident, then they simply just run away and leave your car out there. Your car will be towed, then you have to deal with all that mess, when they've taken off. And so the corrupt system around the transport business is just insane. So whatever you do, there's many places you can put your money in. People do agribusiness, people do healthcare, people do education. There are many things you can put your money on in. But transportation is not one of those that I would recommend. Now, like I said, I think some people have been successful. I'd be curious to hear your experience. But I promise you, I know people who no longer are connected with their relatives because of these things. Well, thank you guys for listening, and I will see you in the next. Bye.